Okay, guys, look, thank you very much for making time this morning to come along. I know that if you're like me, I'm not a morning person. I'm a bit of a night owl, so it's a bit of a stretch to get me up. I didn't realise that there was a 6:30 a.m. in the morning actually, but it was a bit of a stretch getting up. But look, thank you very much. I think most of you may know me, and those who may not know me, my name's Ronaldo DePaulis. I'm the Principal Consultant at Novata Solutions. We've been really privileged to be able to partner with Dell Boomi for our low-code integration platform. I don't want to talk too much about Dell Boomi because that's why we've got the experts here, but I wanted to introduce you to Andrew, who will probably kick off the discussion this morning. So Andrew's our WA State Manager for Dell Boomi. So anything WA based that you want to know about Boomi, Andrew's a person. But more importantly, what I'd love to introduce you to is Saram. Saram is probably the #1 authority on all things integration globally. He's never had a question he has been unable to answer, and he's never had a demo go sideways. He's insisted that I mention that this morning. So there's a couple of slides. I don't want to go through death by PowerPoint. We're actually going to have a real demo of the product that Ram will take you through. But I'll hand over to Andrew to talk through about a little bit more about the integration landscape and what's happening globally. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ronaldo. Thank you, everyone, for coming along on a Wednesday morning. I know we didn't realise we were starting to compete against all these different breakfast, lunches and things going on today and tomorrow, and it's also hard to, I know about everyone in the room who's a football supporter, but it's the conversations we've been having over the last 3 days, it's been quite hard to keep people focused, considering there's this big game on Saturday that seems to shut down the cities somewhat. So is anyone a West Coast supporter? Yay! Yeah. Alright, so I'll be a Melbourne supporter just to annoy everyone in the room. So we're really fortunate to partner with Ronaldo and his team. We're pretty excited about what's happening in WA at the moment. There's some pretty cool conversations that we're having with some folk in the room, but certainly a range of businesses in WA across different sectors, aged care, higher ed, resourcing. Everyone's starting to not just look at IoT, and I'll give you a bit of an idea of what we're seeing in the space, but you're starting to look at their business as a whole and how they can start connecting their entire ecosystem. IoT just being one part of that. So some pretty cool stuff, and hopefully I can share some of those stories because I imagine you'll all relate to it. So just show of hands, does anyone know much about Dell Boomi? Because I don't want this to be a big Dell Boomi show. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Cool. All right. So we're in the right room, and it's good to chat. So I won't. And yeah, this is not a death by PowerPoint because Ram is
the #1 authority on all things integration.
The brains of my little partnership in WA. So I'm the guy that does lunches and coffees and all that stuff. Ram actually does all the hard work. So I won't pretend to be the expert on integration and IoT. I'll let Ram dazzle you with his pretty cool demo actually. I'll just go through a couple of bits. So that's what he's done here. So in terms of I'm going to click through this because some of these. So, what we're seeing, a lot of you will see this in Gartner and Forrester reports and those sorts of things. That when we're having discussions with IT managers, CTOs, CIOs, CFOs these days, that most major projects now have some kind of component of integration. I come from an ERP background at a company starting with O, so I won't mention it because a lot of people will start throwing things at me. And when we used to go out and talk about ERP, we never talked about integration. And now coming out of that space and I suppose understanding how important connecting systems, connecting people, connecting partners, connecting to devices and things, how important that is to businesses to really be productive and efficient. It's really important. So we're seeing that in nearly every project, whether it's an ERP upgrade, whether it's CRM, whether it's human capital, there is an element of integration. So we're certainly seeing a huge uplift across that the integration space. Certainly in Australia, it's been a huge uplift. I think that's been, Ronaldo can probably talk to it better than we can, but a huge uplift over the last 2 years in terms of the conversation around integration is it's a different conversation now than before. A little bit of marketing spin, I suppose, from Boomi, but in terms of an iPaaS platform integration, again, if you follow Gartner and Forrester, if you believe in the reports, we've been a leader in that space for the last 5 years. So we're obviously doing something right in the marketplace, and that's the global leader, not just in Australia. So yeah, we're pretty proud of that fact as well. And that's why Ronaldo decided to partner with one of the best of breed businesses in Australia. I'll come back to this in a minute around I'll actually let the master talk you through that. So I suppose some of the conversations we're having, a quick agenda, I'll go through a couple of stuff without boring you. We really want to get to the demo because it'll probably give you a sort of an insight that if you are moving towards, actually, has anyone got an IoT strategy or moving towards a strategy? Of course you do, with your little clickers last night, showing like that. But is anyone thinking about, thinking about, so the reason why I ask that is that, again, a lot of the conversations that we are having, there's two different sides of the conversation. There are either conversations with businesses that have already got an IT strategy, whether they implement it or not, it's a different matter, but our conversation with them is usually, all right, so you're connecting to, you're trying to connect your devices out in the field or whatever it is, but what are you doing with data? And most of the times they'll turn around and go, well, yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge. It's not actually connected back into the business and presented in the right way to customers, stakeholders and those sorts of things. All the other conversation is being led to businesses that are starting to think about IoT, but trying to get their foundations correct first in terms of, well, how do we get your back office, how do you get your systems talking before you start thinking about what devices, what you're wanting to do to enhance the experiences of your customers, your partners and those sorts of things. So I just want to get an idea of the room of where people are at, because there's some pretty cool stuff going on there. Lots of good discussions in, not just in WA at the moment, but where, not just discussions where we're helping customers in higher ed. So University of Melbourne, which we're very fortunate, chose us as their partner of choice. They're looking at, I suppose, like any universities, one of their biggest assets is all the land that they own, meeting rooms, and it's also they can't. Melbourne University, they can't buy much more real estate because it's all taken up. So they're using an IoT strategy to start monitoring how many people are actually using meeting rooms, and are they actually being used correctly? Can we resource differently? Looking at lighting and consumption and all those sorts of things. So they're going to leverage Boomi's platform to be able to quickly connect and bring that data real time back and start feeding that back into the business so they can make really important decisions moving forward. So higher ed are doing some pretty funky stuff. They've got to deal with this Gen Z these days. So they need to connect to all sorts of different. Actually, Ronaldo's probably a Gen Z, although with grey hair. I dye it. And everyone's probably got customers similar that they're all coming out that they want to use Raspberry Pis and they want to do all sorts of stuff. And businesses need to have a platform to be able to assist in doing that. So aged care is another good one. So we've got customers in aged care that are connecting to mattresses in homes or sensors above doors, so they can actually start monitoring the activity of patients. And I know there's a bit of a Royal Commission just starting, but aged care providers are starting to look at how one they become competitive and stay competitive in the marketplace, but how they can gain better insights, better care to the patients, but also become more efficient and productive with their nurses or those sorts of things going out. So some pretty cool stuff. Resource companies, certainly over here, they're all looking at how do they connect to tyre pressures out in trucks out in the field, and again, how can they become more productive, how can they extend the life cycle of a tyre. What does that mean? Is that an extra $3,000 a day? Whatever it may be. So being able to connect to all these things out in the field becomes really important to stay relevant and competitive. A couple of key drivers. So this is a Forrester report with the number of CIOs and CEOs, what they're trying to, what's driving their thought process around digital transformation. It's probably similar to where you might be in some areas of this pie. What we're probably seeing in conversations is more, 45% are suggesting we need to be thinking about IoT, but they're sort of thinking, and what does that mean, and how do we grapple with that? What we're probably seeing is that a lot of discussions around, this is really important, and we need to get this stuff right. We need to think about how we can connect. We've got a lot of businesses have these disconnected business units, so they've got different systems everywhere. They've got everyone's making their own decisions and all those sorts of things. So how can we actually connect our business in the right way? How do we collaborate faster, quicker with internal stakeholders and our partners? This is a big driver. Consumers want, I don't know about anyone in the room, but people just want to know stuff today. Gone are the days where you put a phone call in, wait for Ronaldo to take 2 weeks to get back to you, which tends to happen a little bit. A lot. But people on their devices, they want information. They want information about what's happening with their product, not just share, all those sorts of things. So this digital drive from consumers is getting CIOs to really start thinking about how they can create a very agile business, and Boomi can sort of help in that respect. Some conversations, I suppose, more of a flavour around IoT. Conversations we're having a lot around businesses. Again, most businesses are starting to think about this. The productivity, again, depending on the type of business you're in, but how can we leverage information, whether it's out in the field, on a machine, whether it's in an aged care home, whatever it is, that we want to know when things are going to fall over. We can't wait for an email that comes through. It takes 2 days, then it takes another week to do something. There's a cost to do business. Product loss. Ram will show you a pretty cool demo, but how do you know when one of your hardware or a refrigerator or a unit's about to go offline? How do you get those metrics back to the business, and then actually create some automation in your business that gets someone onto that real quickly? Increased productivity is a big one. So we're talking to a big resource company here in WA. They have no idea, when they've got thousands of guys out in the field as welders, they don't know 2 things. One, they don't really know how productive the actual resource is, and 2, they actually don't know how productive the welding equipment is. So we're starting to talk to them about, well, how can we connect to some of those devices and start feeding back to you real-time metrics around the welders and what's happening, because there's a big cost that it's going straight out the bottom line, or that they can actually put back onto the profit. A few other things we're having discussions around. How do you either remain competitive, or how do you stay ahead of the pack? And I think that's why a lot of the thought process, certainly, some of the aged care facilities in WA especially, are thinking about heart monitors and sensors and all those sorts of things. which is pretty cool. And a few other things. You've got companies out there thinking about how can we provide drones and feed information to you, and brand new revenue streams that you can start thinking about because there's so many devices out there. But the biggest question is how do we capture that data and how do we monetize that? So some pretty cool conversations that we're having at the moment, and I'm sure you're all thinking about some of these things internally. So for us, before I start getting around to sort of dazzle you, for us, for Dell Boomi, we sort of play, when we think about a connected business or the conversations we're having, I think I mentioned this before, most businesses are sort of in certain buckets here. When we think about a connected business, and I'm not suggesting that everyone's ever going to achieve this whole connected business, but we sort of start talking to companies around this area first. So how do you connect your business together? And start getting some efficiencies and collaboration and those sorts of things. But in terms of your entire ecosystem, you've got your own business. You've got to start thinking about how, and this is sort of that integration space, which Ram will sort of take you through. How do you actually start exposing APIs and services and B2B, EDI type artifacts to your partners, in real time? So how do you engage with them faster, quicker? Because they're probably doing it as well. Can you actually bring on more partners faster, quicker? How do you do that? Over here, you've got all the, you've got Omni Sales Channel, but you've got CRMs, POS, all sorts of e-commerce. But that really needs to be connected back to your back office. A lot of the times it's not. So you've got people out in the field or shops or whatever it may be doing their own stuff and their manual data coming back. This really should start all talking to each other. And then you've got all this type of stuff that Ram loves. You've got all these different consumer devices that they may not all be relevant to your business, but you think about, we're doing a lot of work around how can we, if something happens within your business, how can you quickly SMS someone when something's happening, whether it's an employee, whether it's a staff, a customer, whatever it is. How can you leverage a lot of these devices or things, if you want to call them things, out in the marketplace faster and quicker using one platform to do that? So there's a lot of vendors out there that do this, just that. There are some vendors that just do integration. There's some vendors that come in and go, we've got API management. Dell Boomi does all of that, including some workflow across the top, which Ram will take you through. So when we start talking about a connected business, we sort of more think about the discussions we have with CIOs and the like is that what's the long-term strategy for the business, and can we help you achieve some of this, or how can we help you achieve this in total, faster, quicker, at a time to market? So does anyone have questions around that? Does it make sense for everyone?
What's the little bird on the consumer devices?
Twitter.
Thanks.
There's a few things that I'd probably have to make something up on some of these, but so interesting. Yeah, we've got a very large manufacturer that has just partnered with Dell Boomi, which has got a very interesting project around the whole connected car, those sorts of things. Pretty cool. So what I might do before I hand over to Ram, I just sort of brought this up there. I don't know whether people have seen this, certainly over in the West, but there was just a press release that came out from the EPA over in Victoria that got a huge IoT project. So they originally came to us with more, we need to connect to all these 1,000 devices and sensors out in the marketplace so we can give information back to our consumers in Victoria, which is pretty cool. It's just a quote from the CIO. Once we started having a discussion with them, we quickly realised that none of their back office systems connected with each other. So they've got things like SAP and Salesforce and a whole range of stuff. So once we started understanding their strategy, they we're again very fortunate enough to partner with Boomi, not just for the integration, the IoT strategy, but we're now integrating all their back office, which then allows them to actually connect to the sensors and bring it back more efficiently, and it makes more sense. So just thought I'd share that with one of our customers. I think originally, the breakfast was going to be sort of a local government sort of focus, but we obviously flicked that around a little bit because of these local government meetings. But we got lots of stories around that. We've been very fortunate enough over the last 18 months to partner with some pretty cool businesses. So what I might get Ram to spend a little bit of time with you around Dell Boomi as a platform and how we connect businesses, again, across the different stack. But just quickly, everyone probably knows of this big company called Dell. They either sell you computers, laptops, storage, stuff. Just to give you an idea where we fit in, we used to be called Boomi. Michael Dell made a strategic acquisition about 10 years ago and acquired Boomi. If you think about all the M&A activities that he's done over the years, he really needed a platform to be able to onboard and offboard applications very quickly across his ecosystem. So I think when I started, there was like 50 instances of Salesforce across his business globally. I think we're down to 19 at the moment. But we became very strategic in his his ecosystem of businesses, and we really become pivotal around. Sorry, pivotal. I shouldn't say that. He's actually got a business called Pivotal. We really sit around that application space, and we're very strategic to his business in terms of connecting his customers that are utilising a whole range of areas of his business. So I just want to give you an idea of where we sit within the Dell Group. We are very fortunate that we're set up as a federated business unit, so they let us run like a little tech startup, although we're not little, but they leave us alone. So we've got the support of Michael Dell and his deep pockets, we tend to have some different conversations to some of the folks. So a bit of background to that, but I didn't realise I had all these. So 7,500 customers, that's actually, we're over 8,000. I think this time last year we were at about 6,500, so we're the fastest growing iPads in the industry, which is pretty cool. That's some Gartner stuff, but you can jump on the reports. I think what we're most proud of is that we've got the highest renewal rate in the world for integration. So, and I think the next competitors are sitting around 89%, so we're pretty proud of that. So again, we must be doing something right, adding some value to our companies. And there's probably one, I'll leave you with this because I don't want to bore you with PowerPoint. Dell Boomi is a configuration-based tool, so very different in the marketplace. We've had out-of-the-box connectors, so everyone's probably using a lot of these systems that you can quickly connect to and build out your integrations and do a whole range of stuff, but things like SAP, Oracle. I'm from Netflix. I used to actually pick up the phone and go, "Hi, it's Andrew from Netflix." I seriously used to do that. I just got confused with NetSuite. And a whole range of different businesses here that we've got out-of-the-box connectors that you can quickly connect to faster, quicker, with a lot of intelligence and some AI behind that. So gone are the days where people looked at integration and went, "Oh, geez, I end up going and find 5 developers and I'm going to spend thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, and it's going to take me 6 months to integrate 3 or 4 systems." We have, and Ronaldo can talk to this, so it doesn't have a Dell Boomi flow, but we have enterprise companies that are integrating to 10s to 20s within 3 months and being in production. So it's fast, quick, fast time to value. I might get you to start. You want to lead this in around the platform, and then you can jump into your demo.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
You guys have heard my name enough, so I won't use myself too much, but it's very hard to be, or very hard to keep that kind of hype that is created for me. But I'm Ram. I have been in the integration industry for the past 14 years, I'd say, across all horizontals and verticals in Australia, banking, government, and all that stuff. So in terms of the platform itself, as we're able to see there, it's a unified platform. So all the API management, your integration, your workflows, and everything else is all on the single platform in the cloud. It's platform.boomi.com. So there is no IDEs, there is no development platforms or Eclipse that you need to download on your workstations and all that stuff. That's all gone. Our runtime is called the Atom, and our HA solution is called the Molecule. I'll get to that in a minute. We've got all that crowdsourced intelligence built in the platform. As Andrew was saying, the AI is built in because it's a single platform and it's a single instance multi-tenant platform. All our customers log into that single platform, so we're able to leverage a lot of analytics behind that as well. As I was saying, single instance multi-tenant, that is one version of the platform across the board for all of our 8,000 and odd customers. Moving along, so why Boomi? Well, you've got your total cost of ownership reduced, resources reduced, and shorten the time to market. So because we are a highly configuration-based and visual tool integration set, it takes a lot of less time to actually get to the market than any of our competitors. Okay, so that's the platform in a very small nutshell. So basically, we've got the application integration piece there. We're traditionally an EDI company, which we've then modernized ourselves to become a truly cloud platform. So we're not cloud washed. We were born in cloud. So we were actually born in cloud. And we've got the API management toolset there. We've got the master data management, and across all those four things, we've got that low-code BPM workflow automation tool as well. So that's all in the cloud. That's all in one single platform. So as you can see, you can connect it up. So it's a distributed way of topology, if you want to call it. So the runtime can live across the world. You can run anywhere, right from a Raspberry Pi. You will see that it's a very portable runtime. So it's just a 40 meg runtime that you can just install it in 2 minutes and up you go. And all that capability and all those 1,500 plus connectivity is right there in 2 minutes for you, wherever you want it to be. And I'll take you through that. So across the board, you've got your mobile apps connecting to it, you've got embedded apps, you've got IoT, which you'll be seeing soon as well. Any questions on the platform before we jump into the toolset? No? All right, so as we were saying, single platform across the board, on-premise, off-premise, hybrid, no footprint of infrastructure at all, that's fine too. We have our own infrastructure that we can host your integrations as well. So we're a very flexible way of integrating systems. Let me just take you through what I'm going to show you today. Because the runtime itself is a very portable runtime, we were able to port the runtime very close to where the data can be. So if you have to move the data from an on-premise database to cloud database, and you've got to do a lot of that ETL and a lot of that heavy lifting, you can move the Atom, which is the runtime, towards and closer to the data so that you don't waste too much time in latency as well. So what I'll be showing you today is we were able to put the Atom at the edge device. So if you put the IoT context around it, so you've got your edge device or the IoT gateways, which you've got that sensors where we can get the data from, and then they stream the data off to another container or another server where all the data is massaged through, right? And all the data is sitting there in a database, and some other BI tool needs to go in and massage the data and make some decisions out of it. That's traditionally how it has been happening. Now, when you've got the ability of a platform like Boomi, where you can move that runtime, that decision-making runtime towards the devices, you will have the ability to do it do decision making, alerting, analytics real time, as in right where this sensor data is coming up as well. So what I have done is the Raspberry Pi is a single board computer, very, very small computer. It's just 1 gig of RAM, 8 gig of disk on it. So it's just, and the Atom itself is running on it right now. So what I have emulated in a way is that just think of it of the Raspberry Pi as the edge device where you will have all your sensors feeding the data into. And we have put the Atom onto the edge device where you can actually start connecting up to the system wherever you want it to. So all the decision making, the data, the connectivity is right on the Raspberry Pi. You can actually create a very complex integration right on the thing, and you can actually start putting the data where it has to go right away. You don't really have to push it off to some other BI tool where you can actually have your BAs looking into it and then say, hey, you know what, there's a trend in the usage of devices and all that stuff. So you can actually have all that decision-making stuff here. So what I have here is that the Raspberry Pi has got some temperature sensors, some humidity sensors, and some air pressure sensors on it as well. So what I have been doing since last night is that measuring all that and pushing the data off to our AWS instance. And once that AWS instance has got the data, we use our workflow tooling to expose the data off to a web page, right? I'll just quickly show you what we've done so far. Just give me a minute. So that's the Raspberry Pi interface. That you can see I've just written a small Python code that will just go in and extract the sensor data out of the.
Could you perhaps just turn it larger for me?
Yes, sure.
Nice.
Did that help?
Right? No, it doesn't go too much. But what you may have missed here is that it is also showing the temperatures over there as well on the matrix. So it's a pretty intelligent tool set where it's actually extracting the data out in real time.
Oh, fancy.
And then coming onto the disks. So what then happens is that I've got a process or an integration process running on the Pi that is extracting all the data out and pushing it off to an AWS database, right? And using a very small workflow, and that's the workflow, that's just it. And that workflow will basically be that. So once I do that, and once I do a refresh on that page, it will then go back out to my AWS instance, get the data back out and graph it out, and then give you the data straight away. So all that historical data has been there straight away. And I can keep refreshing it, and it will keep coming up with the data. And this is Boomi Flow. This is actually that low-code app development platform where all I have done is configure a page, which is that, and then call to my Amazon system or an Amazon Redshift database that gets the data off it. That's all. And that small app is basically that. And the beauty of all that is, that app is responsive out of the box. So you can actually have all that intelligence come out of the app, push it off into a database and expose the data straight away. So you can actually have that alerting mechanism. So I'll just quickly take you through the platform itself. This is how the platform looks like. You've got all your master data management, API management, and flow capability right on the platform itself. And that's just it. That's the process that actually takes the data from Raspberry Pi and moves it onto the AWS instance, right? But at the same time, if you want to go really complex, you can actually configure a Twilio service that would send out a message or an SMS to a mobile if the temperature is too high, right? Or it can send off to another sensor or MQTT and push that message off. It can even create a case in Salesforce if you wanted to, and you can even have that send off to an email as well. Right out of the platform, there is no coding. So all that complexity, I've not written a single line of code, and that is running on Raspberry Pi right now. So in terms of if you think about the footprint of the runtime itself, it's just a 40 meg runtime, it's a Java runtime. You can have 512 megs of heap size that's coming out, or you can scale it down to 25 megs on the heap size, and it will still run on it. Okay, any questions there?
So
I just didn't want to. Yeah.
So the orchestration is done in the cloud, and then it's pushed the metadata.
Right there. The platform is in the cloud, but the runtime, which is the Atom, is sitting there. So when I run anything and when I schedule my integrations, all that processing is being done on the Raspberry Pi. Nothing's going up to the cloud. The cloud is just an IDE where you just configure, and once you configure it, I deploy that process right onto the platform. From the platform onto the Raspberry Pi. Once that is deployed, that's it. It doesn't need the platform anymore. It can run it by itself. Okay, any questions?
Sorry. When you need to update the Raspberry Pi, is that a simple enough process to go and change it? Let's say your database instance changes, or you want to ship data somewhere else.
That's all configuration here.
Okay. So the Boomi runtime on the Pi just knows to send it to your instance, and the instance takes care of whatever.
Yes. So it's a one-way communication. That's a good question. Thank you for asking. So the data never leaves the Pi. The data is so the integration here is between whatever the sensors are giving the data from, and it's going up to the AWS instance. That's all. That's all that's happening. So it's never going up to our platform.
Yeah.
It's a one-way communication from the Atom to the platform. That's over SSL, and that information, it's only a one-way information, and that Atom keeps polling the platform to see if there's an update to that process, or this is where the TCO comes straight down, that there is no patching ever on the runtime, because the runtime patches itself. Because we are a cloud platform, we push updates to the platform 11 times a year. So pretty much every month, we update the platform. And we make sure all of our customers' integration do not break before we even release the platform upgrade. And we do that by a feature called Boomi Assure, where we let have our customers choose to submit their test cases that they're building on the platform, submit to us, and on their behalf, we will run their test cases and make sure that those integrations are not breaking because of the upgrade, before even the upgrade happens. We're not saying that we will never ever break an integration. We will sometimes, and what we do is that we have our customer success team go on to the customer, proactively work with them and upgrade that particular integration, and then move on. So if one customer's integration breaks, all the other customers wait for that upgrade to come through. Is that, yeah.
So how do you deploy the Atom into the Raspberry Pi in the first place?
Cool, yeah.
And what's the process of you've configured that to then take that intelligence to then get it down there?
Great, thank you. Thanks for asking. So basically, all you will do on the platform once you've got a user ID and a password, that's what you log on to. And all you will do is go into your Atom management layer. Once you do that, you will have an option to create something new. And that gives you an option of creating an Atom. You can choose Linux, 32-bit, 64-bit Windows, and you can even containerize the Atom. Okay, so that 64-bit download installer will give you a very small shell script that you can just ship it away to your Raspberry Pi and run it, and it just runs. It just comes up with a small UI with.
So you manually run it on the Pi. It's not done from there.
Oh, you can actually log onto the Pi. So the Pi gives you a web interface, a very nice web interface, Chrome. Log on to that, get downloaded. So basically, all you do is platform.boomi.com, and it will connect up to the platform and download the shell script, run it, bang. And that is just about 2-3 minute process. That's all.
So that puts the atom, not the configured code.
No, that puts the runtime on the Raspberry Pi.
Right.
That's one part of it. Once you're done with that, and once your atom is surfacing up here, because it is a single instance, all the atoms that you create with your user ID can be managed through a single pane of glass. There is no reason why you should go onto different systems to talk to different things. Once you've got the user ID, all your atoms are surfaced up with that instance. So that's my Pi. Oh, that's my Raspberry Pi. and the cool thing about it is all the atoms come with their own RSS feed, so you can actually subscribe to it on the phone, and you can actually have custom logs done from the process, so you will know what's going on with it as well, as it happens. Okay, so once you do that, once you build, you've got that deploy, you've got the package manager, you select your process. So let's just say you want to deploy this entire package. You just go create, new package and deploy. We will ask you to version it. Version control is built into the platform. So you don't need to go about maintaining another Git repository or Team Foundation server or something. Everything, each and every component that you build on the platform is versioned. Okay, and you give it a version, go to the next deployment, and you choose your environment and where it goes.
Can you roll back?
Absolutely. So you create the package, and once, so let me show you. Deploy, you go to your deployments pane, and it will tell you which package has been deployed to which atom. You can either run deploy, or you can roll back to another version as well.
And if the Pi can't sort of reach, in your example, you're using your AWS instance,
Yes.
what happens then if it can't reach it?
Well, if
Will
you
it
can't
just keep the queue and
yeah,
re-establish
absolutely.
it?
So the platform itself, or the atom itself, has got that runtime itself has got the native queuing capability, and you can actually start having that very smart error handling mechanisms on the process itself, and you can run very complex business rules on top of it as well. So if that AWS instance is not working, let me figure out another database that I can push it off to, and have Flow surface up the data from both the data. It's just configuration anyway, it's just bang. So.
We talk Pi. What about other devices like your own terminators?
Yes. Yeah. So that's where it gets a bit interesting, because as long as you've got an OS, if it's Linux, Windows, doesn't matter, any flavor, it can go onto Raspberry, it can go anywhere. As long as that is there, as long as, pretty much any edge devices or any gateways come with an OS and a disk, you can just push it off to there. So our own Dell Edge devices can actually host our atoms, and the guys over in Melbourne have actually done that, have actually installed the atom on the Dell gateway or edge gateways, and we've used that information that's coming from the edge gateways to push the data off as well.
We've actually had some of the other manufacturers look at it as well. So we're in discussions with a large number of manufacturers with edge devices out of our Asian offices because it is so small and specifically so nimble. A lot of Chinese manufacturers, cheap, good equipment that they're not allowed to in the Australian marketplace. They want it clean. So they're sort of basically wanting to take off the current Chinese OS and replace it with Boomi. So we're in those discussions right now.
What about just traditional integration, system-to-system integration outside of IoT, and doing some orchestration and some business rules when we're transforming data and master data management?
Yeah, absolutely. So So because the entire platform comes with everything built into it, all you got to do is just enable and start using it, right? So the platform itself, in terms of connecting to your existing infrastructure, those technology connectors that Andrew was just talking about, you can use pretty much most of it to connect to anything. So basically, a database, a file system, an SFTP server, OData, if you want to get too fancy about it, OData, SOAP, APIs, RESTful APIs, you name it. Pretty much across. And that coming from an IBM background, a very IBM background, what was refreshing to me was that you are not confined to the number of runtimes that you can have. So if you think about an IBM or a MuleSoft, they come in and say, these are how many cores that you're going to use, and no matter whether you're going to use them or not, this is what you're going to pay. That's not how it works. You can have as many atoms as you want, as many molecules as you want, but if you've got 20 atoms connecting to 2 systems, you're only paying for 2 connections. So you're not shelling out a lot of money. So you can actually look at that 1, 2, 3, 4 year growth and then say to us that, look, for the first year, I'm just going to use 3 connectors. Let's look at that and then keep going that way. So you don't really have to go down with a lot of money into it. You can start small and you can leverage what you have. So that's what Andrew was saying. We have Melbourne Uni are leveraging their existing Oracle Fusion stack that they don't want to replace, or they want to replace it but not straight away because they've got a lot of investment on it. The point is that they are able to leverage what they have using Boomi because we are more agile than them.
So maybe, Graham, maybe show the guys, talk to about the process, the setting up the process first. That doesn't have to change, but how easy it is to then offboard or onboard a new system either way.
Yeah.
Maybe take them through like a transformation, because I know there's lots of conversations around how do we get different types of data in different systems.
Yeah.
A quick insight into where MDH can sync all the systems.
Yeah, sure. So I'll quickly talk about how easy is it to actually configure a connection, right? So any connector on the platform comes with this template where you've got to define what a connector is, which connector you want to use, right? In this case, this is a database connector. And what kind of action do you want to do on the connector? You want to get the data or do you want to send the data? In this case, it is sending the data, so we're inserting or updating stuff to the database. And then, you know what? You got to define a connection, so that's the connection. So all you got to do is define the type of the database, the username, host name, port, and the database name, right? And all that, you don't really have to wait for your build to happen. You can just go test connection straight out. And once you have that test connection done, you can actually select which atom do you want to test that connection on. Because you will have a lot of other atoms and you are targeting that process for that particular atom, you can actually select which atom you want to test that connection on. And yeah, so I'm testing it on the atom that's there on the Raspberry Pi right now. So I'm just going to go test connection, and now the platform is talking to the atom on the Raspberry Pi, and then the Raspberry Pi atom is then connecting up to the AWS instance and then saying, okay, I can connect to it. All right, and once I do that, my connection is established. Once that's established, I'm just gonna go, all right, the connection is there, what kind of data? That's fair enough. I'm gonna create an operation, and based on that operation, the platform will even let me choose what data do I want to insert. And again, that is another visit. So all you got to do is click that import button, select your runtime, select your connection, just that, and now the platform is asking the atom on the Raspberry Pi to connect to that database and get all the tables from the database now. So what it is now doing is loading all those tables up. And once you've got that, okay, I want to do the reading table, go next. It will then go to the next level and bring up all the columns on the database. Right? Once you've got the columns, you select what you want, you go and say next and finish, and it will then create your profile straight away. So if you want to run a complex query, you can write your own query. Don't get me wrong there, you can do that. You're not amputated there, you can do that. But the point is the ease of connectivity and the surfacing of the data from the database never got easier. For me to do this in IBM, it took me at least half a day. Because you've got to configure the ESN, make sure you can connect up to it, and I can't test that before I even build the process. I've not even built the process yet, I've just tested it out. And that's the rapid development and the fastness that we can go to market with.
Can we build custom connectors?
Yes, absolutely. There is an SDK on the platform that you can start working on, but not many customers have actually had a need to actually develop their own customers, but connectors, sorry. But absolutely, we do have that. But thanks for asking that. The entire platform, be it API management, be it MDM, or integration or flow, across the board, everything is API enabled. So our engineering team built everything with an API and then surface it up on the UI. So if you're not getting enough information on the dashboards, on the metadata that the platform provides, you can actually have or interrogate our API, get the data, and surface up whatever data you want from it.
Data transformation.
Yes, sorry, yeah. Cool. So we've got a cool, a very seriously cool feature on the platform called Boomi Suggest, right? So this is where most of the integration challenges come, where you've got large data tuples that you want to map and transform from and to, right? So in this case, you've got the Salesforce account object that's got about 100 or 120 fields on one side, and you've got the NetSuite customer object that you want to map to. That is a very complex object with multiple layers in it. Now, with any traditional tooling, it will take a bit of time to figure out where each of those fields go. But not with us, because we are a single platform in the cloud. We were anonymously able to index about 67 million maps across the board, across the world. That gave us the opportunity to make sure and mine that mapping across the board, right? So what that does now is that if I click that button called Boomi Suggest, it is now going up to the platform, interrogating that index, coming back with suggestions and transformations of suggestions, saying that, okay, out of these fields, 78 fields, I'm confident that previously our customers were able to map to those fields. On a medium confidence level, I've got 11 fields. So once I go in, the platform itself will give me the option of accepting that transformation or rejecting the transformation as well. So once you go through that and you finish that, it is also, yeah.
If it's suggesting, saying our other customers have been doing that, does that mean that our internal scans are exposed internally to Boomi, or is that only people that have actually submitted?
Yeah, so great question, thank you. So what's happening here is that the metadata of the tuple is only being indexed. It is not the context of the integration, and it is not the system, it is not the credentials. It is just the tuple, it is just that data set that's being checked or that is being indexed in a way. So your data is absolutely secure and that never leaves the app, ever. Unless you want to. So what it has also done is it brought down all the transformations in between as well. So most common one, obviously every organization is different, every organization does things differently. There will be a few things that you may have to go in and maybe change a few things here, but 95% of the work for you is done here, right? We're not saying that 100% we go and go done. No, that never happens. Most of our customers actually use this and then go, right, okay, let's get into this. Let's test it out first, see if it passes our testing. If it doesn't, let's look at what failed and keep going with it.
Has anybody ever used BizTalk in the past? So you know when you got your functoids?
Yeah, functoids, yeah.
But these, you imagine doing this if BizTalk was able to auto map.
Oh, yeah, because it looked like this took right up to that.
That's right.
Button where it auto maps. So
That's right. So that's a big difference. And then you know with BizTalk, there's a lot of hand coding you still need to include. So to get to this point in Biz, and we're a Microsoft Gold partner, right? So we've been dealing with BizTalk for many years. So when I saw this, it was a big game changer. Like the speed to market and the speed of integration has blown me away.
Any questions?
No, I'm just trying to think of, I know I'm mindful of everyone's time, just MDH as well, just to quickly touch on.
So in doing that, you've done that, can you put it to a staging place so you can visualize the content that's come across?
Yes. So once we've got that, and as you're seeing, that version history is there as well. Okay. And once you save and close, you can actually have that map as a part of the integration. So let's just say that this process has got that map, and that's just a simple map, simple straight through map, right? But the platform actually lets you test that, right? So let me just quickly keep that off so that I can show you the real deal. So I'm again reading the data from the sensors. It will write a CSV file. You can even have the Raspberry Pi make a HTTP call up to the platform as well. So there's nothing stopping me. I just thought I'll just show you that. That's all. So once that file is created, I can actually go in, hoping it's done with it. Let's just wait for it. It's just going through that. Yep, that's done. All right. So I can now go in and say, right, test this process on the Raspberry Pi Atom. So what it is doing now, the platform, the process running on the platform, this is the only time the platform will talk to the Atom and then bring the data back up. And I'll show you that. So it's gone through, it's picked up the file as a CSV file, transformed it to an XML, and it's got about 6 records, and it's gone through and processed each and every record and transformed it to a DB and pushed it off. Now, at every stage, you can actually look at what's come through, right? Because you're testing it, the platform is allowing you to talk to the Atom, bring the payload back up to the platform. That's the only time that the data goes up. But once I close this, the data is deleted off the platform. It's never persisted on the platform as well. And that's how you visualize every time that you make sure that all your data is coming through. But what our PS team have done was really cool, where they've developed a unit testing framework on top of that, where you can do all sorts of assertions and all that, so that you don't have to manually go in and check it, it will check it for you as well. So just quickly going through master data management, where again, as I click master data management, it will not give me another window. It is again, because it's a single platform, it's just giving me and refreshing my view on master data. So basically, it came through master data. This is my demo account, so I keep it very clean. So it's just 2 golden records at the moment. But you start off with models. So any master data management or master data hub solution will start off with a model. What are you mastering? Either it's a patient, customer, whatever, right? So the platform is agnostic to the domain of the data that you will master. You can master whatever you want, whatever data, whatever context, doesn't matter. As long as you've got a start point, if you've got an XSD, you can import it straight into the platform and start working on it. Spreadsheets, you can start working on it. If you've got even a sample JSON that you want to master, you can just import it straight into the platform. If not, the platform lets you build it manually as well. So I've created a few models where you're saying, okay, this is an application model, and that application model will have those fields. So this is basically an onboarding solution that I've built for an employee who would come into the organization, gets approved, gets offered a job, gets approved, and all that, and you've got to go in and give him access to all those systems, right? So what I have done is I've created that model where I've linked it up with an employee ID and making sure he's got all the access to that as well. Now, if I go back on the employee model, you will actually see that I've actually customized a lot of stuff. So I wanted the basic stuff, but I also wanted some of the custom stuff that I really wanted to have it. So I've added those AD IDs and all that stuff into the model as well. So once you've got that, you can have those matching rules that you want to make up your golden record. So let's just say if you want to check and make sure that there are no duplicates, there is no John with a H or John with a O doesn't happen, and if there is, then you can have those rules configured on the platform. And if any of those rules match, you can actually quarantine and alert someone to come in and fix it up as well. So you've got those matching rules there. You can do data quality steps as well. So once you've got a data coming through, and if you want to enrich a postcode, if you want to go back to Australia Post and get some real suburb data, or maybe even enrich a phone number, you can actually go out to an external process where you can either call our own integration process, which can then move on to another database and get something, or you can write your own business rule. And you can run those data through similarity algorithms and all that stuff. So it's a very, very powerful tool on the platform as well. So you can do all sorts of stuff. This is tagging. Tagging is my favorite because what it lets you do, and this is what I like to say, is that it hashtags your data. So if you have 50 million rows, and out of those 50 million rows, you only want 1,000 rows based on a condition, you can specify that condition here, and on the fly, the platform indexes that and makes it available. So you don't really have to go to the platform and run the query. All you need to do is just ask for it and it will give it to you as that tuple, as those 1,000 records. So usually you would go in and write a query that will just keep churning through the CPU and I/O, and you will sit there. But here, that doesn't happen because all those golden records are on the cloud, or in the cloud in AWS Sydney. It never leaves the country. The golden record is in the country, and you can actually have that done up as well. So you can enrich your data, you can dedupe it, and you can put some stewardship rules around it as well. So that stewardship tab will take you to where the data is actually, and you can have your staging area where you don't want to accept the data unless you've processed it, or you can have the confidence. If you have the confidence in the data, you can make it straight through as a golden record as well. So there is a lot of flexibility and a lot of dynamism to that, because what happens then is that you can configure some events on the platform that if there is a quarantine record or if there is a golden record ever made, you can actually have the platform sync the data back into your systems. So in another way, we don't want to be a single source of truth. Most of the MDM platforms out there, or MDM solutions out there, they say, all right, they come in and say, we are the source of the truth. This is where the data is. That's kind of not where we are. we make sure that we enrich the data, we create that golden record, but at the same time, sync the data back down so that all the systems in the organization have got a uniform data across the board. And that is where the solution really picks up pace, because you're able to leverage your existing integrations that you've already done on the platform to push the data back in.
So does everybody understand the business problem we're trying to fix with master data? Yeah. Same data across multiple systems, but they're actually not the same, they're all different. So this is where the MDH solution really comes into play, and the power of the Boomi platform, as Ram was saying, as the number one authority in integration globally. Ram was saying that sort of that dynamic nature of being able to really massage and correct that data on the fly.
So any questions?
Well, you mentioned several times about AWS. Does it work with some of the other, like Azure, or can you push it elsewhere?
Yep.
Or
Quickly show
is it
that.
just
So
connected?
basically, you've got native Azure connectors, native Amazon connectors, S3, SQS, native. So you don't really have to code much. You just need to give it the credentials and where it goes as well. So S3, of course.
No? I think we're probably getting to the time now. Yeah. I think we've hit the...
So that's Melbourne time, by the way. So don't.
I really like
The laptop doesn't really let me change the time frame. Sorry about that.
Look, guys, again, thank you very much for attending this morning.